Hello, welcome everyone to More to Talk About with Level Forward and POTUS on Broadway. Yes, you can clap if you want to. Woo! My name is Andrea Ambam. We are at Henrietta Hudson. Thank you online for everyone who's joining and watching. I'm super excited for this conversation focused on Black women and democracy. I'm going to be moderating, so if you have questions online, you can just look at that little box right below the screen, put in your questions, your comments, and your affirmations. They'll come to my phone. I'll say them out loud. The in-person audience knows how to ask their questions, and without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to these beautiful women next to me to introduce themselves, and we'll get into the conversation.
Happy to be here. I'm Vanessa Williams. I'm playing the First Lady in POTUS.
Woo.
For those that you've seen the show, you know it's a wild ride. And for those that have yet to see it, it is a story about the chaotic day behind the scenes in the White House, done by 7 dynamic actresses, written by an amazing 28-year-old author and playwright, and directed by the amazing Susan Stroman. So talking about women power.
That's right.
We'll get there,
right.
but
Yes.
we're having a ball.
That's right. Well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight.
Yes.
Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. I always start with a freedom song. I'm LaTosha Brown. I'm a native of Selma, Alabama, where the voting rights movement took place. I'm also co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund and the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. And I absolutely love to play. And also, you know, in this space that we're in right now, the work that we do is about how do we build democracy and how do we lift each other up, and particularly as women, but as human beings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Incredible. You could please, another round of applause, another round of applause. I have just been so excited about this conversation. The role of Black women in democracy, the political power of Black women is a topic that is really important to me just in my own personal life. And I want to start off with a little anecdote because I want to start talking about sisterhood, the way it shows up in movements and the way it shows up in POTUS. And I'll start with the anecdote that I got to go to the Tonys this weekend. And there was so many beautiful moments, but my favorite moment was at the very end when Joaquina Kalukango won Best Leading Actress in a Musical. And it was amazing to see her win, but it was more amazing to see her awarded by her 2 sisters, Danielle Brooks and Cynthia Erivo. And the squeals and the crying and the hugs. And I was like, oh my gosh, sisterhood is such a familiar feeling, whether you are the sister receiving the love or whether you're the sister giving the love. To be around women who support you is just something that is unbelievable. So I want to talk about the way that shows up for you in POTUS, both on stage with this amazing ensemble of women, and then what is it like backstage, putting together POTUS, being a part of POTUS?
Well, the important thing about what you witnessed is that Joaquina is welcomed to the club by women that have already been trailblazers and set the stage for her to shine. Now it's up to us to support her in Paradise Square. So now you've got the Black people get out there and pay your ticket and see Broadway. That is, I know we mentioned POTUS, which I'll get to, but I'm one of the founders of Black Theater United, which is about changing the landscape of diversity in theater, whether it's productions on stage, but theater ownership, concessions, EDI training when we start a show.
Yes.
So those are all things that we kind of laid the groundwork for and did something called the New Deal, which people have signed across the entire commercial theater community about making change in theater. So we want to show that, yes, there are Black dollars, there are Black producers that are willing to give their money for Black shows, but also for white shows. There is Black money, and we need to show up. So now that she's won, thank you for allowing me to do my spiel, but we've got to show that we can show up.
We have to
and
show
we can
up.
be part of the conversation. We are in the room, and we are ready to do what we want to do. So, and POTUS, so for POTUS, like I said, I'm one of 7 incredible women on stage that make it happen every night, which we've got a fan that's been there numerous times. But that we can throw the ball and know that we've got a secure team that is willing to morph and play differently every night. And that's the great thing about live theater, which you know.
Yeah.
It's never the same
That's
show.
right.
Yeah.
Even a matinee and an evening is never the same show. The audience kind of affects it.
Yes.
And the pros that we 7 are give us a sense of security. So when, you know, you're out of sorts, someone's there to pick you up, which is also sisterhood. When you look in somebody's eye and they know that you're going up on a line, or please help me, I don't know what's happening, or those are the kind of, you know, those constant anchors that you can rely on, not only just as a sister, but also as incredibly talented women who've done this and they're pros.
Yeah. The solidarity that you all have on stage is so palpable as the chaos is happening, as the set is moving. Me and LaTosha talked, right? And you talked about the set, and you what did you say?
I love the set.
Yeah.
I love the set. And what was interesting, when I was watching the set and you were shifting scenes, I was looking in the back in the scene to see if people would break character. And nobody ever broke character. I was like, this is amazing. Right? It was amazing. And I would look and to see, I was like, I know they're going to break character. Nobody would ever break character. And then I would say, well, what are they doing there? Right. So it was actually fabulous. And I do, in the spirit of what I saw around sisterhood, and I think that where there's parallels in terms of how we show up, that we show up for us. We create space for each other. And even there's a certain kind of way that I think women are able to transcend ego in ways that our male counterparts don't, right? That even if there is, because there's a little tension when people see the, there are some circumstances that would cause a little tension, right?
Yes.
But even within that, the larger piece of women like coming together and strategizing around even and collectively, even protection for each other, I think is really powerful, because I think that's what women do all the time. That oftentimes we're literally able to move beyond our own individual circumstance and figure out how we support kind of the collective. I also think that there's a way that we communicate, because I think the other thing that stuck out to me around sisterhood, and I think that we see this in the work as well, we have a certain kind of honesty with each other, right? In spaces where, you know, my girlfriends tell me the whole truth about myself, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, and I appreciate that. I welcome that. That's part of the sisterhood. And so I saw that same theme weave throughout the play around, there were these moments of some people telling the truth around some things that didn't seem like, well, that's not politically correct, but the way that it was received from each other was like, well, you know, okay, all right then. All right, this is how it is. So I do appreciate that. But as it relates to democracy, I do want to say this, that, and black women in particular, you know, black women have been on the forefront of shifting the very nature of this country, around, like really around democracy. That even when you look at the suffrage movement, right, in a movement where black women were actually helping to organize and told to go to the back of the line, and we did not get our voting rights until 50 years later, right? We were consistent because there's an ability, I think, that we recognize that we operate as a collective where we're thinking around how we're going to move our community forward. I also think that we uniquely sit at this intersection of sexism and racism, right? What I think are the two evils in this country that has held this country back from really meeting its full potential. And so there's a certain kind of way I think that we've had to navigate through that allows in this country, if you're not asserting your sisterly badass, it will destroy you, right? And this country, if I am not assertive, if I am not clear, if I don't bring my troops to bear with me, which oftentimes are the women in my life that say, you can do it, you can do it, you can meet this. I think so the sisterhood has been a very practical, it hasn't just been like a cultural phenomenon, it has actually been a very practical part of our very survival, of how we move forward, how we literally are able to raise our children, how we're able to actually lift each other up when all the world wants to tell us that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not, there's some sister, right, when you're doubting yourself will say, you look fantastic, you're so smart, or you can do it. And so there's something around being able to draw from each other's strength that I also saw in the play as well.
And I also, which is fantastic, you know, my character jumps on the theme of, you know, apparently these days it's not enough to be wildly accomplished or deeply effective. She just rattles off, she's, you know, Stanford undergrad,
That's right.
Everything.
Harvard Law. She's done,
World hunger, solving world hunger.
5 nonprofits,
Yes.
has spun these wheels and completely overqualified, yet she's got to deal with all the mayhem that her husband is incapable of managing and solving. And that's one of those things as women that, when is it going to be enough? And I know that we've gone through this through elections, like, when is it going to be enough that it's okay for us to be at the table and to make decisions and lead the country? So Cheryl and Eiffel did one of our town halls that we did for BTU, and she was talking about being in the room. And she's saying even board, if there's board elections, there's board meetings, local school, as long as they see one person in the room who is a person of color, the whole conversation changes. Because things that would have been said, kind of naturally, if they see one parent who happens to be a person of color, they're going to change or they're going to reflect what needs to be said and kind of edit. So it's important to show up.
Absolutely.
In every level. You might not know what you're talking about or what you have no idea, but it's important to be in the room, because that's when policy happens, and that's when you can raise your voice and say, I disagree, or let yourself be known.
Absolutely. I do want to build on that too. I also think, and I often talk about this, I think it's important. I ask people wherever I go to close your eyes. I ask people, can you just kind of close your eyes? Matter of fact, I'm going to ask you all
can
now.
we do it?
Like if I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions. And I want you to hear these questions with your heart, not your head. My first question to you is, what would America look like without racism? What would the institutions be? How would we work? What would a work day look like? My second question is, what would this nation look like if all human beings felt valued and respected? Now, you can open your eyes, because you probably need more than a couple of minutes to come up with the answer to those 2 things. But I raise that because I think that sometimes we're asking the wrong questions. Like, we're trying to fix something that has shown itself incapable of creating what it is that we need and we desire. It is going to require us have a radical reimagination of every single system. Every single system in this country, we've got to be honest, was rooted in white patriarchy, white supremacist patriarchy. And so it's almost like we just feel if we tweak it a little here, tweak it a little there, then it's going to give us some desired result. It is incapable of doing something, but what we can do is really shift this frame of seeing ourselves not just as citizens of a nation, but that we're imaginative, that we are like literally creating a new opportunities. And so I think this is the moment. I think that more young people are paying attention. I think with all that is happening with Roe v. Wade, I think there are more women, there are more young women that are paying attention. And so the question for me is, if we are to create the kind of democracy we desire and we deserve, we have to be imaginative. And I think art gives us kind of permission to dream and to think outside the box. And so even for POTUS, as I was looking at POTUS, so many themes, it was such an interesting way that I saw the art deal with themes of sexism. I saw art deal with themes of objectifying women in there. I saw art deal with kind of the tension of being a reporter, and as a woman reporter, what issues do you have around someone having liberty to actually take advantage or use their position of privilege and power, right? And so I think in all of that, I think this is a moment for us to really reimagine what the possibilities that exist if we're all engaging differently, and we've got the numbers. Like, how are we 53% of the population? I mean, like, really? And we're asking somebody to sit at our table. That's happening.
That's our table. We made
That's our table. What are you talking about? Right.
We put the drop.
Right. And we're going to put flowers in our table. It's going to be pretty.
I love that so much, because I love that you asked us to close our eyes. I love that you talked about imagination and vision and the power that art has, because I think one thing that we don't often talk about when it comes to oppression, when it comes to white supremacy, to patriarchy, is also the way it limits our ability to imagine.
That's right.
To see. We've got all these roadblocks. We've been told different things throughout our life. You can't do that. You probably shouldn't do that. You aren't the right person for this. And so our imagination is actually limited by white supremacy, patriarchy, by oppression. And so part of being an artist and seeing art and engaging with different pieces that expand our imagination is that they remind us of our whole being and our whole possibilities, right?
Absolutely.
Seeing 7 women on stage, making it happen reminds us that that is possible, that that is us, that we do that, despite all the messages around us that might be saying the opposite thing. So it's so important.
And 4 of us are 50 plus, by the way, which is
Hello.
also
That is-
to be,
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
amazing. And
Yes.
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about Margaret because she is such an interesting character on stage.
I love
her.
I love her.
She's amazing, right? We listed her accolades. I don't want to give away too much in the show, but her shoe game is amazing.
Let's just know that her shoe game.
The shoe game is strong.
Her reluctant shoe game.
Her reluctant shoe
Okay.
game. But the reluctancy, I want to talk about that because Margaret's so interesting because she does have all these accolades. She has done all these amazing things. She's actively working to make positive change in the world. And yet in POTUS,
That's
right? In POTUS, we're watching her have to focus so much on her public image.
Yes.
Despite everything she's done, she still has to navigate, how do I get people to like me? Why don't people like me? Why are they not seeing me as someone who is down to earth and capable of being around other people? And so obviously the first time I saw POTUS, we have to say the name of our first Black First Lady, Michelle Obama. And all of us, I believe, remember what it was like when both Obama was running and during his presidency, the vitriol that Michelle Obama experienced at every angle, from what she was wearing to what she was saying, like it didn't matter. And so I'm wondering for you and for us to think about, what are those parallels between what we watch Margaret experience of doing all this amazing work and yet still having to focus on, how do I get people to like me? What is that?
Well, there's also a theme with Hillary Clinton, who
Yeah,
again,
that's right.
who's highly accomplished and supremely effective.
Yeah.
And the likable factor was killing her.
Yes.
Killing her numbers and her ratings and all that stuff. When she said basket of deplorables, that was like, oh my God, it's is she too intellectual? Trying to make her relatable.
Too hard, can't cry.
Hot sauce in my bag. Oh, well, now she's pandering to. I mean, there was nothing that she could do. To achieve, what we thought. Well, she did win, but anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So
And there's that.
there's that. Then there's that. So it's again, it's like, when is it enough?
Yeah.
When is it enough?
Yeah.
And I've been so lucky to have met 5 first ladies. So all the way from, I met Nancy Reagan when I was 20 years old, my first White House dinner with, and she was lovely and elegant. And Barbara Bush was there. They were vice presidents at the time. And she was lovely and maternal and chatted with me all night. Of course, Hillary Clinton's not only a friend, but lives down the street in Chappaqua in my hometown. And she is always, not only stellar career, but like every Memorial Day, you can see her marching. She does her civic duty in our small little town. She doesn't have to.
That's right.
Yeah. But they march together every year to show that they're part of our community, Michelle, I've been lucky to not only have hosted events for her, but one of my favorite times was when she was just finishing her Africa tour with all the young women that she was working with. She ended up stopping off in Spain, and we have a mutual friend who is the ambassador to Spain, and we had a lovely lunch by the Prado Museum with my mother, her mom, my daughter Sasha, her daughter Sasha, Malia, and Michelle, myself, and it was just women being women, moms being moms.
Yes.
Telling stories about goofy dad stuff, and it was wonderful. So of course, people know how down to earth she is. And Laura Bush I've met when I sang at the White House for the presidential honors. I've done that a couple times. So that's part of having grace. Being a first lady, you have to have grace.
Yeah.
You have to be collected. You have to have elegance, and that's part of the job. So it's wonderful to be able to kind of know them personally, or I've met them personally, and kind of infuse that into the character.
Yeah. Selena, the playwright, talks about POTUS not being specifically about any president, right? And on purpose, to make it an amalgamation of presidents, of political experiences, so that we don't come in and we're immediately trying to, go with our confirmation bias of what we feel, that we're actually just being able to watch the show and the experience of it. And so it's interesting to hear you name these different first ladies and think about the amalgamation of women that make up Margaret Flotus in POTUS, which I love. Flotus and POTUS. LaTosha, you've met some Flotuses.
I have.
Yes.
I have.
Yes.
And I think I've met Mrs. Obama. I've met Mrs. Bush. I've met. I want to raise, when you were talking, I actually we're in the era now that we have the first female vice president.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so, and it's interesting because articles that I've seen, she can't laugh. She can't, that a woman who has been highly accomplished in her area of work, even as an attorney, as a prosecutor, all of the things. Now her entire intellect is in question, right? Because of the way she laughs. I think we have to really kind of recognize that part of it isn't around, and I love the question, around what is enough. We have to recognize that they don't have enough to offer us. That ultimately we have to create, as we've always done. Black women have always created space for ourselves. My grandmother used to have this saying around, your gift will make room for you, right? And my life is a demonstration of that. It hasn't been because, and I think the lives of many of us, that, I think about you and I think about your work. We were so excited, right, as Miss USA, Miss America, Miss America, right? We were so excited. I remember being a young person, we were like, yes, I saw myself in you. I saw my mother in you. It represented and it created a space, and what has happened since then, right? So it is this idea of image, the idea of lifting, when we are like pioneers to create space, and we create space for ourselves and for each other, the very nature of that shifts the ball game. Even when I was watching POTUS, I was thinking to myself, the first thing I was thinking, I was like, you should be president. I'm like, she should be the president. Why is he the president?
And they say that, right?
Yeah, every
character
right.
says it.
Right, why is that, right? But there is something about seeing the image of the women that gets you to that same question that I asked. Like the question, what would America look like without racism? Now, leaving the play, you have these questions around, what would this nation look like if women were really running this nation? What could we do? And so I think having at this intersection of art, but I think in activism, having that intersection of art and activism, and not be afraid to actually speak to what is real and shy away from that, because I find myself very graceful until I'm not, right? Yes. and I'm saying that in a context that sometimes it has been the disruptors who have created. That's how you get the waves in the water. And so it's being able, I think of women as multilingual, right? Like which one you want today, right? I can be, I know that there's women, like my mother was very prim and proper, and she could literally, she was the only person I could see that could literally curse someone out without using a curse word. Like literally was just right, like you knew, don't play with her today. This is not the day. And so we're master communicators, I believe. And so I think it's really a matter of us, when women decide, when we collectively decide that we deserve to be in spaces of leadership and power, I think what we will operate differently, and what choice will the world have but to respond to it. I think part of the piece is that we have to believe this, and we have to believe the possibilities, and we also align ourselves with patriarchy ourselves. That is not just the men, we also absorb some of those same value systems as women and perpetuate that with our daughters, with ourselves. And give away that. So I do think this is a space in the play, in an interesting way. The play had me thinking about those questions myself when I left.
Well, it shows exactly that, right? It shows these women who all have a responsibility to the president, to their roles, to who they've played and what they're supposed to be doing, and their accomplishments that they want to reach, and the way in which they may be using some patriarchal, some white supremacist kind of tactics to move through these things. And then, as you said, they do have that moment of, wait, there's power amongst us.
Right.
And actually, do we have to be doing this for someone else? Like, what is it that we actually want? And so we do eventually see them kind of move through the stumble, the roadblocks. In a previous conversation with Jamia Wilson and Gloria Steinem, they talked about this kind of power over versus power with model. And so we're watching a group of women who are using the power over model. They're like climbing on top of each other, pushing one person down, trying to get to the top. And then suddenly there's a switch through relationships, through laughter, through joy, through struggles, where they realize that there's power with each other. And when they realize there's power with each other, it's such a beautiful and hilarious moments that continue to happen throughout the show. And so it's so reflective of what kind of real life experiences that we have.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Thank you.
Somebody came to the show.
Right. I have seen and I read it. I wanna ask you a question, LaTosha, because you talked about activism, and I want us to talk a little bit more about the work of Black Voters Matter. Every time we have these conversations, these More to Talk About conversations, everyone wants to know, like, what can I do, right? And so many people are feeling activated and charged. And you and I had a conversation. This talk is about Black women in democracy, and I told you about the first time I learned about Fannie Lou Hamer. And I think, this might be wrong, but I was somewhere around 20 years old the first time I had heard the name Fannie Lou Hamer. And when I saw all of the work that she had done, voting rights, literally everything, literally everything she touched, I was so mad at myself, mad at my education, that I hadn't heard her name before, that I felt like this woman who had done so much for my existence in the world. And I was like, how come I didn't know her? How come no one thought to teach us about Fannie Lou Hamer? And I want to talk a little bit more about, one, how Fannie Lou Hamer relates to Black Voters Matter and the voting rights movement, but then also, who are those other people, who are those names who we need to be uplifting right now in the work?
Oh, thank you for asking me that. You know, when I think about, Fannie Lou Hamer to me is the embodiment of everything we believe in Black Voters Matter. She really is. There's part of what she's known for as an organizer is that she came to this work, her voice was authentic. Whether you agreed with it or not, like, you could feel her when she was speaking, because you knew she believed that it was rooted in the principle and in integrity of what she really believed. You also recognized that she had a sense of her own power. This is a woman that was a sharecropper, right? This was a woman who didn't have a lot of resources. This was a woman by traditional standards was not educated, but she was. And she knew she had a sense of, I have a deep sense of what is right and wrong, and a deep sense of justice. And that she drew her power from that. She didn't wait till the world affirmed her, or white folks said that she was good, or black folks said she was good, or even men. She literally stood in the space of her own power. And I do believe that that's what we have to do as women. We have to literally be able to stand in that space of our own power, which gets me to Black Voters Matter. Black Voters Matter, you know, people know us from our electoral work, but that is not the mission of Black Voters Matter. I'm the first to say that I don't believe Black liberation is going to come through voting. That is not what I believe. What I believe, it is one vehicle and one tool that allows us to reduce the harm happening in our community, that we are literally, so we can impact public policy. It is also another way around getting people to understand their agency, because if any decision is made about me and my family, I need to be a part of that decision-making process. Full stop, period.
Everywhere.
Right, everywhere. And so it's really about tapping into people's belief in themselves. We're not trying to convince people to believe in the system. We want you to believe in yourself and your own agency and your own ability to be able to change the circumstances around you. And so Fannie Lou Hamer, like, she was the embodiment of that. The other thing that I love about her is around, she knew her power was in her voice. And I often say that, right, myself, that she knew that there's a certain way. I often say, you know, there's kind of the politics of the moment, there's the positions, there's the policy, and then there's something that you can't grab, you can't capture, particularly there's the spirit. All movements, there are tactics and strategies, but there's always a spirit in the movement. And sometimes the spirit in the movement will grab people. Like, might not understand all this policy, but I'm feeling something that reminds me, that wakes up my humanity,
Yeah.
right? And because of that, I want to move and I want to change the world. I don't even know what I want to change the world about. I want to change the world.
Yeah.
And that's what movements do. They are able to tap into our deepest part that goes beyond democracy. That is really around affirming my own humanity. And that's what this woman was able to do. To have the audacity that they won't even seat you, that you're a part of it. You got the audacity as someone who was denied the right to vote, who's someone who was actually beaten, right? For someone who was actually mistreated, who didn't have resources, that was actually kicked off where your plantation that you were staying, that was, quote, in a job that was seen as the lowest of the low. You were a sharecropper, right? To have the audacity to literally be able to develop an organization that they held elections, mock elections, where over 80,000 Mississippi people voted in. Like, think about that, right? In addition to that your voice is so powerful, so truthful, so penetrating, so strong that the President of the United States holds a press conference the same time that you're going to speak at the Democratic Convention because he does not want America to hear you. That is the power that women have. That's the power that we hold. And I do think that Fannie Lou Hamer's legacy is a part of it. And part of the reason why we don't know about that, many of us don't know about that, is the same reason why we're fighting CRT right now, right? There has been a concerted effort to prevent us from really recognizing, right, history in certain communities because it challenges the status quo, that it actually opens up the space in a way. And so the truth of the matter is, that's why I always say that truth is going to penetrate regardless. Here we are on this day, and we're talking about Fannie Lou.
Yes.
So something has worked.
Yes.
I love that you named that it was on purpose. Something that's been sitting with me in a previous conversation that we had with a Level Forward partner, Elm Corps, it's a nonprofit organization. And a woman named Saida Dustin said something that has just been sitting with me for months or weeks, however long it's been. She was like, racism is not an accident. Sexism was not an accident. Transphobia, homophobia, none of it is accidental, right? Like all of these, the policies, these are all purposeful, tactic things that have been done to make it so that people are oppressed, to make it so that people don't have their full rights. And so strategy, when we talk about how to combat those things, strategy is so important because it wasn't on accident. It wasn't like, oops, sorry, you don't have any rights, right? It was like, oops, I'm sorry you didn't learn about Fannie Lou Hamer, that we just completely forgot to mention her. They didn't mention her because they didn't want us to know. And also keeping the power away from us.
That's right. Look, I do want to just say, while, yes, there's been a concentrated effort on those who actually have stood in the way, we have not been good stewards of our story either. For example, in some instances, when we think about the Montgomery bus boycott, right, we think of there's this one woman who, Rosa Parks, who we love, and yes, was set on the bus, and the story was her, and all the work were the men. If you know the story, you know that was the women, right, that literally were at Alabama State, that drew the flyers up, that did all the organizing. The women are the ones who organized around, although we saw the faces of the men. If you know the story of Selma and what happened in Selma, what we know is we know John Lewis and Hosea Williams, those beautiful freedom fighters that we love and respect, but it was Amelia Boynton that had started organizing 10 years previous to that. She was the one who invited SNCC and SLC to come to the city. I say that because I think it's really important for women to understand that we've got to tell our own story, not just because it's like the right thing to do because I need to tell my story, but that in the telling of our story, it creates the space for people to reimagine and to start putting things in its proper place and start recognizing the contributions that women, we didn't just show up. And I mean, I'm glad the world just discovered Black women. That's great, right? But we've been here all the while.
Yes.
To the extent that there has been some threads of integrity, some threads of democracy. That conversation, we have been griots to carry that conversation forward around our humanity.
Yes, the importance of storytelling is not just that it's fun and that it's entertaining and that it brings us together, but it's also an archive.
It serves a purpose.
It's the history. We look back and we see ourselves and we know what happened and we know what was possible and what's more is possible. Like we tell stories so that there are people who come after us who can come back and pick up those stories and engage with them. And POTUS will now become one of those stories that people can pick up and engage with. I want to ask a question about joy and laughter. I threw a question to Selena one of the first times I talked to her, and this was, right after the hearings for Justice Ketanji Jackson. It was still in the midst that we are in the midst of now, the uncertainty around Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. So many things to be angry about, to be devastated about, so many political issues, feminist issues that are intersecting and affecting all of us. And I was like, why comedy, Selena? What is there to laugh about, right? And so she was talking about the role of comedy, but I want us to think about the role of joy and laughter as we move through. Vanessa, I just want you to talk about a little bit about what it's been like to be with an audience every night.
Well, the crazy thing is she wrote this when she was about 6 years ago. I think
Right.
she was
22
at the time. And when Julianne gets up as Dusty and talks about reproductive rights or a basic human right, and the Roe v. Wade wasn't even happening when we were in previews. And that Monday, when it all came down, that Tuesday, we got a standing ovation that held for probably a solid minute.
Wow.
And we welled up on stage because the impact of art meeting the present day and it being so meaningful, we were like, oh my God, this is a moment. Where she wrote this years ago and now it is so relevant. So that was one of those being overwhelmed with the art and the history. So that was a crying moment. But joy is seeing the paradox in front of your face, the community, but also those who haven't seen the show, we can't even isolate any scenes because there's so much swearing in this show. I mean, we all swear. We're all describing things, and the first line of the actual show is a zinger. So the way that she can, Selena, who's our playwright, that she can take the audience on this ride. And the blue hair ladies that come to the Wednesday matinees, once they get over the first shock of the first word, their eyes light up and they love it. And I do, like in between shows, I'll say, was it okay? And she's like, oh, I loved it. All these older ladies, because you see the power of women and you see the joy and the laughter that we're bringing to the audience through all these salacious and naughty words that we but that's the great thing about theater. It's instant, it changes every night, and when you can make people laugh, that's a joy for me. That's why I do it all the time. There's a joy with singing when you can but connect to people, and but the joy of laughter in comedy, making people laugh, it's one of my faves.
The breath you take when you laugh together, and the way laughter breaks the ice. You talk about people coming in, especially the first line, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. And then, but the moment, the tension that you release when you laugh, and then you sit back and suddenly you're bonded with the whole group of people that you didn't think you were because of the laughter. That's also like the joy. And then back to strategy, there's strategy in that, right? Being able to make people laugh, being able to break the bread, break the ice is the beginning of those kind of moments to be together and to move further. I know that joy shows up for you, LaTosha.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how I could do this work without joy. This is hard work, right? When you are literally challenging systems that have been designed to break you, have been designed to keep you out. How could I design? I don't know how I could live without joy. And I always think about joy, like my own kind of personal definition of joy. Like joy is that place of me that is untouchable. It's the place that I hold. Joy is the place of me that I hold my humanity. Right, and I have determined that I have the right to have the full experience of my humanity, whether it's anger, joy, sadness, all of that. And joy is that part where I hold it, the part that I hold that actually reminds me of that I am deserving of. I am deserving of laughter. I am deserving of to feel good. If nothing else, I might have put in, but to feel good. And so part of it is so important that I started an organization called Southern Black Girls and Black Women's Consortium. And one of the things that we did is we created in COVID. So what happened in COVID we were getting many of the groups that work with black girls were telling us they were very depressed, which we know. I mean, hell, all of us were depressed, right?
Yes.
Right. But for girls, like when you're seeing you can't socialize with your friends. This is your last year in school. You can't. I mean, that's a part of growing up, being with your friends and socializing. And so there were so many. Responses we were getting where girls, where young people were really depressed. So we decided to create this short, we thought was going to be a one-time thing, a Black Girl Joy Challenge. And the Joy Challenge would, we would ask girls, listen, you can generate your own joy. Matter of fact, we believe you can generate joy for yourself and 10 other people. And so if you give us an idea around how you can generate joy for yourself and 10 other people, what we'll do is fund and support that work. And they loved it, right? And we've got amazing, one group of girls that called the Brown Girl Drive-In. They created a drive-in movie theater where they showed Black Panther in Lowndes County, right? They did everything. They got the boys to clear the land. They got a T1 line. I was like, y'all some smart girls, right? They got clearance, the license to be able to show it, and it became an event. It became an event for the entire community. And so I raised that sometimes we have to create the spaces for people to be able to generate their own joy. And so oftentimes, I think for me, when I think about joy, I think about that's an act of self-determination. That even joy in many ways can be an act of resistance, or joy can just be something that just comes out of your spirit around what we need. And so we integrate that in our work. If Black Voters Matter, anywhere we go, folks already know we're going to come off the bus like a pep rally. Like we've got music and song and we dance and do the electric slide and all of those things, because I think joy has a way of affirming your humanity. Like it transcends like the politics of your positions or whatever. I am just feeling joy. And if we think about, sometimes it's something that's simple, where I know for me, like sometimes if I see the right color pink on a dress, I'm like, I got so much joy. It could be something that's just so out there, or the right kind of food. I was like, oh, this cheesecake is bringing me so much joy right now, right? So there's a certain kind of way of us being able to transcend, I think, the politics and all of the positioning and just experience joy. And I've seen that move people in ways that a political position can't move them. That I've seen it move people in a ways that they can actually transcend whatever issue they're dealing with. Joy is a gift, and I think it's available to all of us. And we've got to figure out ways to create and make more of that. And I do think that this play does that. So I think that's what comedy and laughter, it is one aspect of joy that we get to experience.
It's integral to our survival,
Absolutely.
our living. Like we have to experience joy. And when you're talking about activism and movement building and all the different things in the world to be angry about, sometimes at the core of liberation and the core of justice is the ability to feel joy.
It's to feel joy.
Right? It's the ability to walk out and smile and to know that you're going to be in the world and that you're not going to have to worry about violent attacks here or harm here, right? Like that is joy. And so sometimes it's connecting that liberation and that activism is actually about experiencing joy at its core.
But it's also being a futurist.
Yes.
I mean, always imagining your future can bring you joy, and the joy that you want, you move forward to your joy. We all have stories, we've all been judged, we've all have pasts. So instead of reliving those stories and sitting in those stories, be in the future. What do you? What's next? You know, that's what I always tell when I speak to young women and mentor. It's like, what do you want? What's next? Yes, you've got a past, but what is? Imagine what you want next, and that's what you're doing with your creation, with your voting, with your young women. It's always creating something in the future. So I consider myself a futurist because the past is the past. I'm joyful and happy for where I am now. What's next?
That's the best line all day. So I'm with you.
Yes.
So we're Black futurists. That's like, we can go now. We can go now. You said.
Yes. I wanna in the spirit of what's next.
I love it.
What are things that both of you are looking forward to, Vanessa? Doing POTUS on Broadway is such a huge, amazing thing. And then what are you excited about? What's coming up?
Well, what gives me my biggest joy now is listening to the laughter of my grandson, because I'm a new grandmother. He's 5 months. So my middle daughter had a baby and a son in end of December. So that gives me, I can't wait till the show is done. I jump in my car and I visit him all the time. But in terms of creation and creating my future, after I finish this, I'm doing a season 2 of a show called Queen of the Universe, which is a drag queen competition singing show.
Yes.
Done in London. It's a global competition.
I'll be tuning in. We'll be
It's
watching.
on Paramount Plus, and we did it last year. So this is season 2, and it's drag queens that actually have to sing. So there's no lip sync or whatever, and it's amazing. Talking about creative. Oh my God.
Talk about joy.
Talking about joy.
Henrietta
Disco
Hudson.
balls,
Yes.
sparkles, rainbow. You know, it's just pure lux and pure happiness. So
Yes.
I'll be doing that, and then I've got a couple of concerts, but also some projects that I've got in creation. So hopefully they'll be out pretty soon, and music as well.
Amazing. LaTosha,
Yeah.
what are you excited
So
about?
it's really interesting. There's some similarities. I also have a grandbaby. He's my sugar bear. So I have a 2-year-old sugar bear and an 8-year-old Spider-Man remix that I absolutely love. You know, what is on, I really believe where we are right now. I think the politics, doing the work, the skills of doing the politics, that's needed, but that doesn't shift. How you get votes, how you register people, right? I think one of the areas that I think we need is narrative shift. That at the end of the day, it's lifting the stories, being able to shift the story, but not just to shift the story in the moment, just what you said, like literally helping people to think and imagine, radically reimagine what is next. And so part of, and you know this because we are working on this together, part of one of the projects that I'm working on is a one-woman show that really explores that. Like at the end of the day, the foundation of taking us through this journey around how can we radically reimagine a new world? What does that look like? And what is incumbent upon us? And I do think that even as we're imagining, it is important for us to be able to really look at what has happened in the past, really be able to think about what's forward, and then think about where we are being present in the moment. And so my work is really, as I see kind of what's next for me, is really more into the narrative and the creative space. Like to create as many opportunities as possible to bring people joy, including myself, right? But also to be able to shift the narrative through storytelling, through imagery. We have popular education on our side. We've got, when you look at the majority of people in this country, it's becoming browner and younger, right? And so there is a particular role for creativity, for storytelling. People want that. That's why we love superheroes. That's why some of us are Marvel fiends. Like, right. We want to be able to imaginative. We want to be able to see something different. We want to be, to really be able to see something that stretches our imagination of what is possible. And I think we need to play more in that space. We continue, it's almost like a hamster wheel. We're continuing to think that if we just tweak certain things that they're going to straighten up. I mean, it's been 400 years, y'all. I mean, I'm we're still having a conversation of whether black folks should have equal access to the ballot. I'm not going to be in that conversation no more. Like I refuse to be in that conversation. It's not even a valid conversation. The conversation that I want to be in, the conversation that in terms of this next body of work for me is, how do I create a world that centers the value of humanity? That not the politics of the day, not a political party, but the love of humanity. What does that world look like? And so as I see my next body of work, I want it all to lend to that, to how do we create a world where the love of humanity is the center of everything, is the center of public policy, is the center of our politics, is even the center of our art. Because our art is very violent. We have to acknowledge that what we're experiencing in the U.S. is just not coming out of a box. I literally was watching for movies on Netflix. Every 6 movies, I would have to go through every 6 to get to something that wasn't violent. Unless to the point where I literally had to go to cartoons, right? I mean, there's some, even in dramas, we have an insatiable appetite for violence. We have an insatiable appetite in this country on some otherizing people, right? In some way, this power differential has impacted us on multiple ways. And so I am hoping, and I want to be a part of this love army, that we're going to shift this world on how we can create and generate and put more content in the world to get people to think differently about how we move forward.
Hello. Yes.
Thank you both so much. I just love that love, that humanity and love are at the core of this. Like, these are all how we are with each other. It's all of these like seemingly very basic words that make up how we are with each other. Joy, love. And if we could have more joy with each other, if we could have love for all of us, for every single person, wherever they're from, whatever the background is, like, that is so much of the core of like how things move and how things change, and narratives and what we watch and how we join together, and the communal experiences that we create are so much a part of that.
Amen.
We are in our last closing minutes, and this is also a surprise in POTUS. So there's some surprise singing in POTUS.
Oh, that's
Did I ruin the surprise?
That's thank you to our amazing director, Susan Stroman, who again should have got a Tony nomination, because not only did she, it's ever flowing. You know that every she had the mega mix, which you're talking about, which we all at the end of the show we come out and sing all the songs that were already preset, which are Joan Jett and Pat Benatar and Heart. So all these rock songs that are women empowerment songs. We come out at the end and we kind of sing a little medley of it. We call it our mega mix at the very end. But Susan not only elevated the play which you read, which is amazing, but stages, so every opportunity is staged. The flow, she's a choreographer that started back in the days of dancers, so every door slam, every beat is choreographed to the music, and it's not like, oh, where do you think you should move in the stage? It was all done, and she is brilliant, and it looks so easy that, again, a woman doing that and making it look too easy, it probably just happened. It was organic. But she literally was a mastermind at making us look effortless when you see it, because it is a revolving stage, and it is all choreographed. And the comedy, she always say, pick up your cues, fast is funny. And that's why we started at a fever pitch when we were rehearsing, because we were like this at the very beginning. So that's what keeps the energy up. But again, it is her mastermind of integrating the amazing raucous play into almost a musical event for the people that haven't seen it. And I was going to tell a story, but we talked about the past. We're not going to talk about the past. We're going to talk about where we are now. And you bring so much light. I mean, I'm astounded and so humbled to be sitting next to you, because you are a futurist. You are making it happen. And you are bringing your light to everyone. And I'm sure you can join me in singing, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Now I can die and go to heaven. I sang the song. Me too. I am good. Like, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to tell me anything the whole week. I'm done.
Ravishing.
Oh my gosh, you two bring so much joy, so much light, so much brilliance and humanity and love to every space you're in. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for joining us online. This has been More to Talk About with Level Forward and POTUS on Broadway. Look out for more to talk about conversations with the cast and creatives of POTUS, and you'll have a lovely rest of your day. Look at this beauty.
You were wonderful. Thank you.